Hello, everyone. I'm Sebastian,
I'm David.
And I'm Riley.
and this is Film Real Talk. Before we start, just want to show a little bit of restraint because we have very terrible video quality and audio quality,
Yeah.
but we are very much doing the best we can with what we're given in these trying times. Before we start with our main discussion of today's episode of the Film Real Talk, which will be our favorite films of the 2010s, I do want to talk about some films I would recommend during the quarantine that'll keep people busy. David, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I believe that the movie I would like to recommend here is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This is a pretty new movie within the last decade. For those of you who don't know, it's like the first in the trilogy for the new Planet of the Apes movies that ended with War of the Planet of the Apes in 2017. So pretty much I wanted to recommend this movie because it's relevant to the current virus that's going on. It's like this movie deals with a whole virus that goes around, and I think like it's very interesting nowadays, especially as it's relevant. I also just think it's a really fun movie. It has a lot of action, a lot of like really good like writing. Andy Serkis is just great. I mean, he's like good for motion capture. You might know him as Gollum. Some others might know him as Snoke in the new Star Wars movies. The film is also just really well written and feels grounded. I think the human characters are actually really interesting. I don't know, like unlike a lot of movies, you'll see very bad development for all humans, but in this one, they're actually very likable. The plot is inventive and feels fresh, which I think is very important. The film is actually a prequel to the original Planet of the Apes films, which some of you may have seen. Um, it's also a great first film and one of the best trilogies I've ever seen. I think it's a really great film. And with all that said, it's also more concerned with telling a good story and having good character development than setting up or just like leading up to other films. So I think that's really important. And also I think Caesar is one of the best characters of all time. I think he's just really likable, really like flawed, which I think all good characters are. And I just think it's a great movie. I'd give it a B plus. How about you, Sebastian?
Personally, I haven't seen that movie, but actually, Andy Serkis is one of the main characters in the film I'm about to recommend. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It was released in 2011, The Adventures of Tintin, directed by Steven Spielberg himself and produced by Peter Jackson. And it is scored by one of the great composers of our time. You might know him as the composer for all the Star Wars movies, John Williams. So I'd give this movie a good 7.5 out of 10, but that by no means is a bad score. This movie won a Golden Globe Award for the Best Animated Film of the Year, and it draws a lot of inspiration from Spielberg's previous works and from the Indiana Jones franchise. Specifically, I'd say Raiders of the Lost Ark. It has a very spirited, adventurous story in the same vein as Indiana Jones. It's a good old-fashioned adventure painted with modern colors. The technology they use in the film is very reminiscent to what they used in the Polar Express movies, but I definitely feel like they've made a lot of improvement to the motion capture technology at that time. I definitely suggest checking it out. Unfortunately, it's no longer on Netflix, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere on, Amazon Prime it. Again, yeah, I give this a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely recommend this one. If you really like the Indiana Jones movie, it's a little more of a kid-friendly version of it, but it's definitely has a very dark tone to it at certain points, and it's a very good mystery film. And of course, the animation allows for shots and sequences that live action just wouldn't be able to allow. So I definitely suggest this one, The Adventures of Tintin. And Riley, you're up next. What film do you recommend for the quarantine?
Well, for me, the biggest thing needed for this quarantine is something good that's also on Netflix, because everybody has Netflix. And so my recommendation is probably one of my favorite movies, and I'm recommending it also because it's on Netflix, which is There Will Be Blood. Now, this is more of an artistic-y kind of movie, so if you don't like dark and brooding and a little bit dramatic, then this probably isn't for you. But again, it's on Netflix. Give it a watch. It's directed by Christopher Nolan. Phenomenal. No, wait, not Christopher Nolan. It's, gosh, who directs it? I don't remember who directs it, but Daniel Day-Lewis is in this movie. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal in everything he does. He's just great all around. But this is just a fantastic movie. Very dramatic, very great with its dark tone kind of feeling to it. You know, it's not for the light of heart, I would say, but I would definitely say it's worth a watch if you're into something with a bit of dramaticness to it and a bit of more darkness. It's dark and dramatic. That's basically all I'm saying. So, you know, give it a watch definitely because it's available now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
All right, so those are the films that we suggest you guys watch during the quarantine. We'll have a new set of films for you next show. But we definitely have a lot of films to cover for this one, and this is our favorite films list of the 2010s. So our first category is comedy, and I'll go first for this one. I first have Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz. I think if you guys know Edgar Wright, you know this is one of his best films, probably his best film in my opinion. And next we have Ben Stiller's Tropic Thunder. This one, again, just hilarious. I don't even know if you can really compare Hot Fuzz and Tropic Thunder, but I feel like if I were to say which one I'd watch more often, I think it would have to be Hot Fuzz, but definitely Tropic Thunder is a classic. Everyone knows it. Everyone still quotes it today. I definitely think if you need some, a laugh in these harsh times, definitely try watching Tropic Thunder. And I think my last one would definitely have to be, my second to last one would be Wes Anderson's Grand Budapest Hotel. I'm a big fan of his work. I was introduced to Wes Anderson through Fantastic Mr. Fox, but and then when I started watching his live action stuff, I liked him even more as a director. And I think the Grand Budapest Hotel, his highest grossing film, has to definitely be probably my second favorite of his. I definitely suggest checking that out. And then my last one, I think, would have to be the Peanuts movie. A little bit underrated, in my opinion. This is 3D animated as opposed to the usual 2D animated Peanuts movies. Definitely suggest checking this one out. It stars one of the characters from Stranger Things as Charlie Brown. I'm a big Peanuts fan. I don't know if I have. I got a little Peanuts from the Memorabilia right here. I'm a big Peanuts fan, so it's definitely got to be one of my favorite comedy films of all time. So that's my list. We got Hot Fuzz, Tropic Thunder, Grand Budapest Hotel, and Peanuts movie. So that's the best comedy films for me. What about you?
I think that's a great list. For me, my number one is the Lego Movie. I think it's honestly such an overlooked film because I feel like so many people, maybe similar to the Peanuts movie in some ways, like it's a film that is technically a kids movie by how people tend to look at it, but in reality, it's actually a very good family film and one that I think all ages can really enjoy.
I think it was for anyone that grew up with Legos.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think anyone who grew up with it and anyone who even like just wants to just inspire to be something great can just love a movie like that very much. Another film I love is The Nice Guys. That's a very underrated film as well with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. That's a buddy cop movie, very 80s style. I just don't think we get a lot of films like that nowadays. It's just really special to me. I think it's hilarious. After that, I think Tropic Thunder, which Sebastian, you pretty much said perfectly. I think it's just hilarious in every way. Holds up very well. I love it so much. And then lastly for me is Game Night. That was a very new movie, but I think it's also very hilarious. It has that one was just a very pleasant surprise because I thought the trailers looked pretty bad, but I think the actual film holds up very, very well.
Yeah, that's a very underrated movie. I'm a big fan of that one too.
I agree. How about you, Riley?
Yeah. First, I also wanted to say, I looked it up. It was Paul Thomas Anderson that directed There Will Be Blood. He also did The Master. Check that out on Netflix too, The Master. For comedies, I have down, for my number one, I have Wolf of Wall Street. I think this is probably the funniest movie I've ever seen. I mean, it's just, if you like violence, kind of, it's just really, really funny. I also have Grown Ups 2, which is very dumb. I know. I think it's much better than the first one, I have to say. I mean, it's hysterical. I don't care how bad you think it is. I think it's hilarious. I also got 21 Jump Street. I got Ted 2, and I got Deadpool because I love just all these dumb garbage comedies where it's just swearing and people getting hurt, and it's just I don't know. It's all funny stuff. Ted's really good. Ted 2 is funnier. Deadpool's also funny. So yeah.
So that concludes our comedy films. Next, we're going to go to horror, which is not really my strongest category, but I'll give it a shot. I only had one film that I kind of recommend for this category, and that would be Henry Selick's Coraline. Might also know his work from Nightmare Before Christmas. A lot of people think Tim Burton directed that, but no, it was all Henry Selick. Definitely, I think a very underrated director. I'm a big fan of this movie. I could talk about it for a very long time. I actually just watched it a few days ago. And unfortunately, at the time that I wrote this, it was on Netflix. But unfortunately, they took it down for whatever reason. I guess the license expired or whatever. I don't know where you can find it now, but I definitely suggest, like, even just going as far as to just buy it on online or even get the DVD of it, because it's just that great a movie. I really suggest checking this one out.
I actually just checked. It's on both Hulu and Amazon Prime, if you have it.
Hulu?
It's on Hulu. Yeah.
Everything good that was on Netflix is just kind of floating its way onto Hulu. Like, No Country for Old Men used to be on Netflix, and then that disappeared, and now that's on Hulu. That was pretty disappointing, but
yeah, Netflix is going down the drain, but that's a conversation for another day.
Hulu's just buying them out, basically.
As David was saying before, even though it is a kids movie, I could definitely see all ages liking this.
Oh,
and
definitely.
I feel like some younger kids think it's a little too much for them, because there's definitely a very, very dark tone and a lot of really dark stuff in this movie. I'm sure you're familiar with The Buttons for Eyes. They don't sugarcoat it. It's scary.
This
movie
scared me as a kid.
Yeah, but I don't think it's too scary that kids can be put off by it, or I think it's the right amount of creepiness and horror that it's just the right amount for me. If you're a little peeved off by horror movies, I definitely suggest checking this one out. If you need a little good scare, or it's still a very lighthearted movie at the same time as well. So I definitely suggest checking that one out if you're looking for a good horror movie.
That movie, it creeped me out as a kid, and I couldn't watch it. But now, having grown up a little bit, it definitely is something worth appreciating.
I completely agree. I mean, it's just such a classic.
Stop motion animation, too. I'm a big fan of stop motion animation. Wes Anderson's last movie, Isle of Dogs, was stop motion animated.
Wes Anderson.
And I'm a big fan of that genre of animation, because it definitely allows for it's a lot more work, and I don't think it gets enough attention. I'm also a big fan of a movie called Kubo and the Two Strings, which is also a Leica production.
Yes.
And studio made
Great.
Yeah. So I kind of suggest that whole genre of animation, stop motion animation. Definitely go check those movies out. They definitely need the financial support. The last stop motion animation movie that I know is Missing Link, starring Hugh Jackman and Zach Galifianakis, which I think was snubbed at the Oscars. I think I've been very vocal about that. I don't think Toy Story 4 should have beat it. That's also on Hulu, Missing Link. I know I'm kind of gearing off from talking about horror, but definitely check out Coraline. And if you like that, any other stop motion animated movies that you could get your hands on.
Yeah.
Completely agreed.
I think I had in my horror movie list, I also have Paranorman, which is also in that same thing. I mean, stop motion's just fantastic. Anything they got, especially that company. I don't know what they're called, but
They're
they
on
got
Leica. Yeah, Leica.
they have fantastic works.
Unfortunately, they're in a little bit of financial trouble right now, because this did not do that great. But I definitely suggest checking them out, and if possible, helping them in any way financially, or just watching their movie on Hulu.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think all their films are really, really good, except for The Box Trolls, which personally I thought was okay, but I think all their others are really good.
I think Box Trolls was definitely aimed at a very younger audience, but I definitely think it had its moments. I say Coraline definitely has to be its best. Its first movie had to have been its best, but movie like Kubo and the Two Strings isn't far behind it.
Definitely.
That's actually number one for me.
I'd have to say possibly, I know we're going very off topic here, but I think if I were to rank the movies, it would have to be Coraline, a little behind that, Kubo and the Two Strings, Missing Link. Actually, I'm sorry, no. Yeah, Missing Link. Paranorman, not that it's a bad movie, but I do think I'm kind of I'm 50-50 with Missing Link and
If
Paranorman.
you're a kid, it's a great movie.
Oh no, I think I'm a teenager and I love both of those movies very much.
Yeah. I don't know what we're doing that actually. My ranking would just kind of be I would kind of just go Kubo, Coraline, Paranorman, Missing Link, and then Box Trolls after that probably.
I would agree with that 100%. That's definitely the order I would go in.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And-
David, horror movies.
Yeah. So so for me, a few movies that I believe are great in the horror genre. My number one is Hereditary, a couple years ago, directed by Ari Aster. This is by far the scariest movie I have ever seen, in my opinion. I think it is terrifying. Not terrifying as in jump scares, ooh, I'm scared, but it's just crafted in such a way that you feel terrified watching it, and the disturbing imagery on display is absolutely scarring. I left the theater shaking. After that, I would say The Conjuring 2. That's more of a fun jump scare type of movie, but I think it also has very good character development, and I think that brings it up a lot for me. After that, I would say A Quiet Place. Unfortunately, A Quiet Place Part 2, as some of you may know, is delayed because of the coronavirus, but what was that?
It's been delayed. I was gonna say it's been delayed, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen A Quiet Place because I'm not a big horror guy, but the whole premise of it and the actors that are involved with it, I hope that the movie is successful. If they end up just like putting it online, or if eventually after this is all over they put it to theaters, I hope it's successful.
Agreed. Right now it has a September date, but I don't know if it'll stick. We'll see. But yeah, I think that's a brilliant film also. More concerned with characters and scaring. That's actually more of a thriller, I'd say. So if you're more into the thriller aspects of horror, I would say that's a great film to check out. And the last one I will recommend for a horror is The Invisible Man, which actually is on streaming now. If you want to watch it, you have to pay for it to rent it. But I think it's a brilliant film also. It's very much a character study on someone who's been abused and how they react and how people believe that person when they think when they have like PTSD and think they're still being taunted. And a great aspect of the film is whether this person is actually crazy or not. And I think it's just a really great film. Very good twist, very good scares, and I think it's just great all around. How about you, Riley?
I just really don't love how they're trying to play off the movie aspect because it has nothing to do with the original one, like at all. And it's just a scheme. It's like the Joker movie. We talked about this another time, but it's just like you're just playing on the name to get people to see it. Come on. I don't doubt it's good, but
I mean, it's a good movie, but yeah, I mean, I won't deny that it's not exactly the monster movie that you think.
It's
when
full.
you think Invisible Man.
It's definitely different. Watch the original one if you haven't seen it out there. The original one is, it's not, it's, cheesy monster movie, but it's very funny kind of cheesy, where it's just like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I love this movie. Definitely check that out. What do I have in my horror lists? I haven't seen a lot of horror movies. I have A Quiet Place, which was very good. I also have The Lighthouse, which I would definitely recommend. The Lighthouse was amazing. Also I would say The Lighthouse, the best movie trailer I've ever seen in my life, probably. Definitely go on YouTube, which you're probably on right now. After this, go check out the trailer for Lighthouse. Watch part 1 and part 2. Best trailer I've ever seen. Movie itself, fantastic. Loved it. Very artsy and such. What else do I have? I wrote down some stuff that was popular, which was Midsummer, which I haven't seen it, but it's the same people that did The Lighthouse, so I can assume it's very effed and very messed up. David, you've seen that, right?
I have seen it. I actually have the DVD right next to me. It is it is graphic, and it is by the same director as Hereditary. I honestly felt speechless when it.
Yeah, the way you described it to me was kind of like a Clockwork Orange kind of feel, like just really effed up, just like there's nudity everywhere. There's
There's a
blood.
lot of It's a movie that you should not watch unless you are an adult, and that's why I'm putting that.
Definitely. Yeah, and I also did a nice little shout out to It. I still really need to see that, but that has to be on the list because apparently it's good.
It is very
That's
good.
all I got for horror.
That's fine. I'm not a big horror guy. I just recommend.
No, me neither.
But so those are our horror films. Next, we'll go into the best action films of the 2010s. And let me see here. Yeah, so I started off with this is a classic,
Mhm.
Mad Max Fury Road, which is from the director of Happy Feet 1 and 2, which you wouldn't suggest that those two directors directed the same thing, but they did. Also, Happy Feet is not a bad movie, too. So Mad Max Fury Road, I definitely suggest checking that out. So the action in that movie is just heart pounding. It's just constant, but it's not too constant that it's too much or too little. I definitely think that the whole story of that is also underrated. I feel like the action gets overshadowed by what is a very good, well-written, tight script. It is filmed beautifully. It takes advantage of the practical effects when it can. And the soundtrack of it is also heart racing. I think I have some songs in my playlist. I just listen to it when I'm working out. It has a all around great soundtrack and all around great movie. And of course, I could talk about these sets of movies for ages. The Dark Knight trilogy. I will say that if you're a little off by the action, I have to say, in Batman Begins is a little bit iffy. The editing doesn't allow for very clear action, but Christopher Nolan definitely learned from his mistake, and the action in the next two are well shot, and definitely the music helps elevate it. Hans Zimmer, definitely my favorite composer, a little bit higher than John Williams. I love Hans Zimmer's work. And he elevates this movie with just a soundtrack, just the same way that John Williams does, elevates the Star Wars movies, even the lesser Star Wars movies, with his soundtrack. And what else do I have here? James Bond, Skyfall. What can I say? You guys know Skyfall. Skyfall is Skyfall. I love all those James Bond movies starring Daniel Craig, even the lesser ones, just because Daniel Craig's is pretty much my definitive James Bond. But I have to say, it's tight, but Skyfall's got to be my favorite. And also the soundtrack in that movie is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And finally, of course, the Avengers trilogy. I have Infinity War right here. Off camera, I have my Endgame poster, and I even have the worst Avengers movie, but still pretty decent in my opinion, Age of Ultron poster right down there. I'm a big Avengers guy. I think for people to say that if they're a big Marvel fan, I think it definitely started with the first Avengers movie. Even though people say like, oh yeah, those Iron Man movies were great, the Captain America movies were great, I think this universe and this whole like storytelling genre really started with the first Avengers movie, and it only picked up from there. We have Infinity War, which is probably my favorite of all of them, with the first one being slightly behind it. I'd say the action is not really as great as the previous ones, which is why I put it last here. But I definitely think that the whole aspect of just the shared universe of superheroes definitely cannot be, forgotten for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for me. I see, David, you also have Mad Max Fury Road.
Yep. Yeah, Mad Max Fury Road, what can you say? I mean, it's just brilliant. Also, the George Miller directed Baby Pig in the City, another kids movie, but I think Fury Road's just such a classic. I'm really excited for the Furiosa movie that's currently in development. Really excited for that. Next, I have Mission Impossible Fallout, which I believe is the best of the Mission Impossible series. I love a lot of them, to be honest. The last three have been phenomenal, but Fallout's really the one that just like kicked it up a notch for me. I think it is the best film of 2018, and I think it just held up extremely well. Lastly for me is Avengers Endgame. I know a lot of people like Infinity War more. That's really the more action-heavy movie, but I think Endgame is the more satisfying one to me. And that's why I picked it as my action film. I think it just satisfied me on every level. And one more I'd like to actually just recommend real quick is the John Wick movies, especially the first one. I think is great. I don't think the second and third are anything great, but the action alone is why I'm putting it on here. I think it's just worth noting that the stunt work in that film deserves to be nominated for some Oscars, even though there isn't, a stunt category. It's all just great. Also, Alita Battle Angel, really good action in that too. How about you, Riley?
Yeah, I mean, I said I have the same things kind of you guys got. I mean, definitely Mad Max. I mean, I definitely can see the inspiration from Happy Feet in there. It's very uplifting and child friendly. I mean, The Dark Knight, the greatest trilogy ever. Don't watch Batman Begins. It's horrible. Just start with The Dark Knight and then that's it. And the James Bond ones, of course. Some also stuff. I got The Kingsman. I mean, the action sequences in that are really, really good. The quick little fight scenes are really very entertaining to watch. I think it's very underrated for a movie. And I also got Logan, which is the Wolverine movie, which is probably the darkest thing I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And it was just gruesome and horrible, and I hated it, and I loved it. And those are my choices.
Logan's great. I'm very glad you said Logan.
Really it killed everything I loved, but in just such a graphic way that you couldn't look away. And it's like that. It's just like a train wreck that you can't look away from. It's fantastic.
It definitely a lot of surprising decisions, but I think it definitely paid off because that was a great send-off to Hugh Jackman.
I mean, it's just
I completely agree.
An ending to it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And going back before we go into our next category, which I believe is our last category. My bad. No.
We have two more.
I do want to talk a little bit about comparing the Avengers Infinity War to Endgame. What exactly did you feel Endgame? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just kind of curious about your mindset on it. How exactly did you feel Endgame was a little bit better than Infinity War?
So for me, Infinity War is a very fun movie to watch. I think the action scenes are really fun in that film, and there's a lot of fan service in it, obviously. You can say the same for both. But I think what really pushes the Endgame a bit up for me is that while Infinity War has good action, I think the character development will always push something over for me. And Endgame gave me a lot of smaller moments with characters. I know people think Infinity War is a very well-balanced movie. I think it could have been a little better. I don't really think they treated Hulk, Bruce Banner in that case, as good as I think they could have. And I like him in Endgame, to be honest. I also think the Vision and Scarlet Witch thing wasn't exactly working as well as it could have. So, I don't know. For me, I think Endgame is just a better written movie, but I do think Thanos elevates Infinity War to a really solid comic book movie.
I mean, I would have to say I liked Infinity War better than Endgame because, I mean, the fan service was definitely better in Endgame than Infinity War, but I felt like it was just too much at times. They were really trying to cram it in there. But it concluded it very nicely. I will give it that. But I just liked the action and the fighting scenes better in Infinity Wars. I felt like the story had more longevity with it, where Endgame was kind of just okay, what do we do now? Okay, let's do this. And they kind of just made it up as they went along. Whereas I felt a more firm goal in Infinity War. I don't know. I felt like more happened in Infinity Wars than Endgame. Endgame kind of felt more just lacking in some, a little bit too much in others. The ending was kind of just
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean,
I do like what you brought up, David, was that Infinity War, it did move very fast, and because of that, they didn't get to have a lot of pretty character-driven moments, which I think Endgame, because it had a kind of slower plot, things kind of took a little bit to get going. I know a lot of people are a little put off by how long it takes the plot to really get, going, which I kind of half agree with, half don't agree with, because it is so slow and takes a little bit to get going. We definitely have a lot of great moments with characters that are a little bit somber because of, I don't want to spoil anything, but who hasn't seen this movie?
I don't know who doesn't. Yeah.
It definitely takes a little bit to, get things going, but because of that, it really gives weight to what happened in the previous film.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is not something that is easy to just fix, just like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But I definitely do agree with David that I really like the character moments in Endgame, and I think that that last big final battle was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in a movie theater.
Yeah, I completely agree there.
I'll definitely agree with you guys. Endgame is very good. I think when I look at the trilogy, I don't look at it too much as the character study. I more enjoy just the action kind of thing with it. But definitely if you're looking at it for the characters, I mean, it's definitely the better of the two. I'll give it that. Definitely the pacing is much better, but I don't know. I just want more action when I walk into a movie like that. I don't know.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. I think the thing with Infinity War for me is, if you ask most people, I think what made the movie for them, it's probably the last, 10 minutes. And for me, I, as much as I do like that part of it, I think that without spoilers, I just didn't feel as emotional as I expected to.
No. It definitely wasn't an emotional ending. I think it was, Infinity Wars was just kind of the through and through action explosion that you want. But then Endgame really is the ending that you want, and it sums it up very nicely. So I'll give it that.
I could agree.
I agree with you that the ending, that final big battle, was only just explosions and stuff. Because I feel like because the movie took its time to really show the stakes and how hard they worked to get to where they did, and to have, I'm gonna just spoil it because
who hasn't? Yeah,
see Captain America is lowest low, taking on a whole army on his own, with everyone being stuck in the rubble of the building after the explosion, and just to have that big triumphant team up that we've been waiting for a very long time. I think it couldn't not be emotional for me. I gotta admit though, a lot of the previous films did pull a lot of its weight to get to that moment, but I definitely think that it was still a very emotional, not just, sure, it was a lot of fun action, but at the same time, I definitely feel like the scene carried some emotional weight, not just because the movie took its time with the characters and show how they changed and how the events of Infinity War affected them, but also because we've had so many movies with these characters that we want to see them succeed, and yeah, and we've had so much time with them, almost each and every one of them. I think the character we've had the least amount of time with would probably be Hawkeye.
Yeah, or Black Widow, either one. My man probably love probably Hawkeye.
Yeah, no, definitely Hawkeye. Nobody.
Black Widow was also a little bit in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, she was in that. So yeah, and Iron Man too. So
yes.
I think I could also contrast that last scene of Endgame with the last scene of Rise of Skywalker, where all the ships come to. We will also be having a big discussion about Star Wars at a later date.
Yeah.
But just a quick summary of that last scene with all the characters. Not the characters. I'm sorry, they're not just characters. There's a bunch of strangers coming in to help Poe out at the last final battle. It's definitely, I don't know about you guys, but I felt almost nothing.
I did not care really.
It was just a bunch of random people just kind of showing up.
Yeah.
That book didn't really have the impact because I don't know, it's just kind of weird.
It was out of nowhere.
It was random, yeah.
Where
you knew who they were.
It was out of nowhere. There was no logic to it. It just
developed it, the big team up kind of worked because there was a clear progression to that team up, whereas Rise of Skywalker was more like just kind of one quote where there's more of them, and we're expecting that to be like a payoff to this big team up.
It's just we got nothing, so we're just gonna bring back more fan service, and it just was in a very tasteless kind of fashion.
Exactly, and one more thing with the Rise of Skywalker, and not to hit it too hard, but there's literally two scenes which I'm pretty sure, I'm gonna guess they were reshot because they were pretty much copying Endgame directly in two lines with the ships coming in and also the final fight where it's I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna spoil it, but like it's I don't know. They just copied it way too much, I think, and did so much better because it's just
Yeah, you could
satisfying.
totally tell that they really wanted that big team up at the end in the same vein as Avengers Endgame,
Yeah,
but they didn't have the time, the characters, or a well-written
definitely.
story to really have it as build up as good as Endgame.
They didn't flush it out.
Yeah,
It's kind of big a little bit if you really think about it. It's kind of a big fu to Rise of Skywalker in the moment where not Rise. I'm sorry, The Last Jedi, where Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia,
Oh yes.
calling for a bunch of people to come team up and help her out. No one comes, but when Lando does it, everyone's just there in an instant. That felt a little bit weird. It's like, do people just not like Carrie Fisher?
I mean,
Just kind of like, if you thought about it for more than a second, it kind of felt a little weird. How
Carrie,
people just come in a flash once Lando like pops in, like, hey, can you guys help out? Carrie Fisher's like, hey, can you guys take out these 3 walkers? No, screw you guys.
Carrie Fisher's a whole thing that's like there's so many different things to talk about with that. We got to do that in a
next
whole
week
video,
we'll
though.
go
Move on.
on with Star Wars, but
All right.
yeah,
Speaking of Star Wars,
Star
our
Wars
next
will go
category,
sci-fi category.
yeah. Let's go to sci-fi.
sci-fi.
I'll kick this one off. I mentioned it. I actually had a presentation in one of my film classes for this film, and I talked this film up really big, and I hope it inspires some kids to go see it because this is a terrific film. Dennis, I never pronounce his name right. I try my best. Dennis Villeneuve.
Yeah, Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. I knew it. Yeah. He's a great director. He's directing the new Dune movie. His movie Arrival, starring Amy Adams, who is a fantastic actress, and also the guy who does Hawkeye is in this one too. He doesn't really have that much of a presence in this one, but Amy Adams carries this movie on her shoulders. And even though she doesn't need to, she puts a really great performance. The effects in this movie, I think, are very underrated. The aliens feel like they have a real presence in the space that they're in, and the sound design only helps because it has such a really ominous tone to it, but it's also very calming. This is definitely and I don't want to say anything. I want to talk about it, but I feel like if I mention that there is something to talk about, that people will be going in expecting there to be something. I'll leave it, but I definitely suggest checking this out with the back of your mind, thinking that there is something very big going on. I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, so I'm just gonna stop talking about it. Go see this movie, Arrival, terrific movie, and it kind of breaks the mold of how these stories can be told. And of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, very different from Arrival, but I think I have to say the soundtrack is like one of the saving graces of this movie. Don't get me wrong, the script, James Gunn's direction is awesome, but I gotta say, I just love the soundtrack to these movies. Every time the new one comes out, I have four more songs on my playlist, maybe even 6 or 7. I have the vinyl record of the first one, and I think also the second one. I definitely suggest checking out the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They are on Disney Plus. Go check them out. They're awesome. And of course, the Guardians are also awesome in the other movies that they're in, such as Infinity War and Endgame. These just strong characters that I can't wait to see more of when the third one comes out. I believe James Gunn has written the script for the third one. And of course, with all this going on, it's just a little bit of iffy of when we'll be able to see it. But I definitely suggest checking those 2 movies out. I say the first one's slightly better than the second one, but again, it's kind of hard to compare the 2 when the story is just so well thought out and well told that it's just kind of a continuation. It's kind of hard to compare the 2 when they feel like 2 like of the same movie. Not in that they're the same movie, but I mean like they're just well told that it feels like it's just a good continuation. The movie feels like the movie's progressing the story where it needs to go with those characters. Force Awakens, definitely not a flawless movie. I could go for a very long time talking about how the movie has its flaws and how it's very similar to A New Hope. But I think JJ did a very good job with this movie. I did like how he introduced the new characters. And while the whole setting felt very similar to the previous trilogy, I feel like it did sort of open new ideas, like Kylo Ren. His character felt very new and refreshing to the Star Wars universe, and I was very excited to see where it would go. So I think it did its job. Definitely not a flawless movie again. I will talk more about that when we go into our Star Wars discussion. But I definitely suggest checking that movie out again because the movie on its own is pretty good. I give it a decent 7 out of 10.
Nice.
I believe that's it for me. David, do you have any movies you want to suggest for our best sci-fi movies of 2010s?
For sure. So the first one I'd like to just say is, as you said, Arrival. There is no way to describe that movie like without spoiling it, but all I'll say is it blew my mind when I watched it, and when I walked out, I was just like, I need to see that again immediately. It is beautiful. It is heartbreaking, heartwarming, and almost just like in so many ways, it's a movie that takes risks and tells a very complex story, but never feels like too puzzling for its own good.
Yeah, I would just say it's very hard to make the kind of narrative that they're telling be confusing, but he just pulls it off so flawlessly that it's just more of a great reveal than it is just a, too complexly told story.
I completely agree. I mean, just like, I don't know, and also, as you said, Amy Adams is just terrific. She deserved an Oscar nom. She got snubbed for that, I think. But again, really great movie. Definitely watch that one if you can. Inception is another movie I'd like to talk about. That one is actually on its 10th anniversary this year. I think it's just honestly like one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. Like, it's like Doctor Strange in the sense of like how trippy it is at times, but like it's just such an entertaining movie, and it has heart, and it has like so much emotion to like get out of it. And by the end, you're just guessing and guessing about what actually happened, and it's just, I love it. Next is Empire Strikes Back. That's a classic. I'm not really going to talk about that one because like everything there is to know about Empire. Yeah. I don't know. And then Star Trek Into Darkness. That's another one from the 2010s. It's like Star Wars pretty much. It's not exactly Star Trek, but I think it's just such a fun movie. And again, it really just brought good character development, good action, good story. I really like that one. I know some people don't, but that's just me.
I don't know if I'm going to see those Star Trek movies because, I don't know, I've been binging the series, specifically the Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah, same here, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of these characters in this whole universe. And I don't know if I should give JJ's movies a watch because I've kind of heard it's very, very different from the Star Trek TV show. And I feel like it's just kind of more of like, it's more like Star Wars, but it's more like kind of Star Wars with like monster energy, like hyped up to 11.
Yeah.
That's not Star Trek to me.
Remaking it, really.
I'd say that's on point. I mean, it's like pretty much imagine if you took the ideas Star Trek has and then put it into a Star Wars like background, pretty much. Yeah. Like, it's very much like a Star Wars movie in its feel, but I think the character development's really solid, and I also just think it's a really fun movie. Like, it's entertaining, so I'll put it there. And then War for the Planet of the Apes. This is the last one of the trilogy, not Rise, not Dawn, but War. I think War is a phenomenal movie. Mm-hmm. It's also just, I'll mention it again later, as you'll see, but I think it's every sense of the word. I think it's just so much emotion. The visual effects are some of the best I've ever seen, honestly. And it has just so much to offer. And again, I'll bring it up later and get more in depth in another category. But how about you, Riley?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with the Planet of the Apes one first off, because I mean that's definitely, I would say all of them are. I watched them all religiously for a while, and then I watched the originals, which were very trippy. Yeah, and the 2001 one doesn't exist, but that's another story. Yeah, I gotta say that. The there weren't a lot of 2010 stuff. I loved the Looper. Looper, I don't hear enough stuff on. I think that one's just your stereotypical actiony kind of movie, and it's just really entertaining in like suspenseful kind of way.
That was by Ryan.
Interstellar,
That
huh?
was by Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, yeah,
I've been that one out.
yeah. Also got Interstellar,
Mhm.
which is, Interstellar. I mean, it's a classic in Christopher Nolan kind of films where it's just outer space. The new Blade Runner is fantastic. I mean, I almost think it's better than the original. The original is good. I like Harrison Ford, but it's like, I don't know. This one I felt had a better aesthetical feel to it. Uh, let's see. I got Gravity, Martian, more space movie kind of. It's a lot of space stuff. And yeah, that's what I got.
Cool.
2010s.
All right, so next we're going into the drama category. These I think I've talked about one of these films before. I won't go into too much detail about The Social Network, but it is now on Netflix, so I'm happy about that. Marriage Story, I've talked about this so many times. It is such a great film. It has such a really gritty, realistic feel to it, and the opening scene is probably one of the best openings to a film I've ever seen. It's just I've never been in a marriage before, but it's what I'd imagine a marriage feeling like, where these are two people, very different people. Um, I don't want to spoil it too much about these two characters, but it's definitely these feel like real characters, not just someone writing down what a person's lyrics would be. Not lyrics, I'm sorry, dialogue would be. It's a very real and raw film, and the director is also the writer. I forget his name, but he also directed another film that I feel the acting was very good. I believe that starred Ben Stiller. And then next would have to be Call Me by Your Name, a terrific film. I actually own that on my Amazon account. I watch it from time to time. A terrific film that also I think depicts a very real relationship between the two men. It is shot beautifully. The colors in there, like I feel like I'm actually in Italy when I watch that movie. It's just such a heartwarming film. And The Social Network, I gave a very strong recommendation for this film. I believe I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I'm a big fan of Aaron Sorkin's screenwriting technique. Very quick, quippy dialogue, but it's also has this time to take very emotional and character-driven scenes that I feel like only he can do. I'm a big fan of his shows. I don't know if you guys know it, The West Wing and The Newsroom. So if you guys like those shows, they're also on Netflix. No, I'm sorry. The Social Network is on Prime. On Netflix is The West Wing. For a limited time, it's almost going to go to HBO Max. And those are two of probably the best shows on television. So if you like the writing style in those movies, I definitely suggest checking out The Social Network. I definitely suggest checking out those three movies: Marriage Story, Call Me by Your Name, and The Social Network. Very real, authentic movies that I will be watching a lot more time with the whole quarantine. I'm actually like planning on watching Call Me by Your Name probably tomorrow night.
Sweet. I don't know. So for me, drama is a very interesting category for me because I think drama can really mean anything as long as it's not exactly a comedy. But I'll mention a couple of films here that I think are really good in the drama department. So the first one is Parasite for me, which it's almost not exactly a drama, so to speak, but it's got so much different types of mixes of genres in it. I think it's brilliant. I can't really say that one without spoiling it either. But it just won Best Picture. It's a foreign film. Don't let that turn you away from the film. It is just brilliant in every way. I think it is totally worth watching. Don't read anything about it. Just watch it blind. It is the best experience you will have.
It's very easy to grasp.
Yeah, I completely agree. So yeah, then after that, I would say A Monster Calls. That is a movie I will always recommend. It's pretty much, imagine a Groot, like from Guardians of the Galaxy, meeting I don't know what else to say, but just like the most serious drama you can imagine. It's like a very nice mesh of drama and sci-fi to some extent. And that one's directed by J.A. Bayona, who made some really good movies. I would highly recommend that one. Next for me is Her, with Joaquin Phoenix. That is another movie. I don't really want to say what it's about because I feel like it's going to turn some people away from it. But I think if you like good performances, like a good romance per se, I think that is totally worth your time. Then The Shape of Water, similar to Her, but again, phenomenal acting in that one by Sally Hawkins. I think she deserved to win Best Actress for that. Then I'll just bring up War for the Planet of the Apes. I'm putting it in two categories here. I think it is also a drama. It is pretty much the ape holocaust. It is a brilliant movie. That is very dramatic, but also very entertaining at the same time. It is a good blockbuster. It's an intelligent blockbuster, and I think it's one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. But that's just me. How about you,
I
Riley?
do love more of the Planet of the Apes.
I do love that movie. I just
I
watched
love
it
all
again.
the Planet of the Apes movies. They're all fantastic. I mean, War is definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah.
For mine, first off the bat, really underrated is Martin Scorsese's Silence, which I thought was fantastic. I think it's still on Hulu if you want to check it out. I don't know. But really underrated movie. It's very, as it sounds, it's very silent. There's not a lot of talking in this movie. It's very dramatic. It's a period kind of piece. So, it's not for everybody, but definitely a really good watch. Very capturing and kept my attention a good deal of the way through. I got Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight, two, Tarantino bloodbaths that are just fantastic. I count them as drama because they're just they do count as drama. They're serious. Anything that takes itself serious is a drama, and they're very actiony. The Revenant, I would be remiss if I didn't mention The Revenant. I mean, it could be more of an action thing than a drama, but it's definitely got that intense kind of sitting on the edge of your seat kind of thing. What else? I have The Master, which I think I mentioned earlier with There Will Be Blood. But, again, that's something really well seen. And Dunkirk. Dunkirk, definitely one of my favorite movies that I've seen so far. Definitely on the top of my list, very high up. I might go into greater details on that one in another video, but that's a movie I think that's absolutely fantastic. If you watch Silence, which I definitely recommend you do, then you would definitely like Dunkirk. So yeah, it's a war movie. They're all period pieces. They're all dramatic. They're all dark. They're all great. Love it all. Yeah.
Those are really good picks. I like all those movies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up this week's show. Next week we'll be talking about Star Wars, all things Star Wars, The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, and a lot of people don't know about this, but a little bit of an in-depth discussion about the 3-hour J.J. Abrams cut that was unfortunately snipped away from the Disney executives. We'll be talking about that Reddit post and whether or not we feel like the Rise of Skywalker probably could have been a better film if J.J. Abrams was given free reins to do whatever he wanted. We'll also be talking a lot about our personal thoughts about the very pulverizing Last Jedi, and if we thought that Force Awakens was the right place to take the franchise going forward. So that'll be everything and much more in our next episode of Film Real Talk. I've been Sebastian.
I'm David.
And I'm Riley.
We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.